Hey everyone! If you enjoyed this video, the full version is available on Patreon. I'll be uploading all my content there going forward.
Chapter 1. Training grounds near the Ninja Academy in Konoha village. On a bench leaning against the railing, a boy, about 4 or 5 years old, wearing goggles, opened his eyes. Just now, a new memory appeared in his mind. His original memories told him that his name was Uchiha Obito, he was 5 years old, and a student in Class A of the first year of the Ninja Academy. Because he had been at the bottom of the class in every assessment since he enrolled, he had become the worst student in the class. His dream is to become Hokage. He often helps old ladies cross the street. His favorite person is Nohara Rin, his childhood friend. But the extra memories told him he is Uchiha Obito. A master strategist in the ninja world, he infiltrated Konoha and launched the Nine Tails attack, resulting in the deaths of his master and mistress. They induced Nagato, the possessor of the Rinnegan, to fall into depravity, leading to the development of the Second Akatsuki organization. They participated in the Uchiha clan massacre, slaughtering the entire Uchiha guard. He secretly collected the tailed beasts, instigated the Fourth Shinobi World War, became the second sage of Six Paths, and fought against the entire world single-handedly. In the end, he repented and died taking a blow for the prophesied child, the reincarnation of Ashura, and the son of Minato Naruto Uzumaki. For a long time, his dream was to activate the infinite Tsukuyomi to create a world with Rin. He often hid in the shadows and caused trouble. The person he loved was Rin, who was killed by Kakashi. The two memories, apart from the fact that he liked Lin, are completely different. No, they are completely opposite. For a moment, Obito was caught in a mental turmoil, the two memories colliding and merging, ultimately forming a single, unified whole. Obito Uchiha has been reborn. He raised his hands in disbelief, and what came into view was a pair of somewhat childish little hands. His eyes went from bewilderment to shock. I actually reversed time and went back to the past. And sensing an unusually familiar power residing in his eyes, he subconsciously activated it. Suddenly, his eyes turned blood red, and his black pupils split into one tomo, then two, then three. Finally, the three Megatama spun continuously, transforming into a large windmill composed of three scythes. This is his dual Kamui Mangekyou Sharingan. Keep in mind, his body is only 5 years old this year. Awakening the Mangekyou Sharingan at the age of 5 would scare even Madara Uchiha into unleashing his complete Susanoo. It was no longer clear whether the eyes had been reawakened due to a severe mental shock, or whether he had brought them back from the future. The next moment, he instinctively activated the power of his right eye. Suddenly, the space around him distorted, and he vanished from the real world abruptly, like a chalk drawing erased by an eraser. Divine Might Space. Obito's figure appeared here. This world, depicted in black and white, was his final resting place. As expected, the teleportation speed of the dual Kamui is much faster than that of the single eye version, with almost no delay. Even if it's not as fast as Minato's Flying Thunder God technique, it's about the same. Obito couldn't help but let out a sigh. The Mangekyou Sharingan can only reach its maximum effect when both eyes are present. In his previous life, he only had one right eye for a long time. Although he eventually got both eyes, he was not in good condition at that time and had to face Kagaya Otsutsuki, the progenitor of Chakra, so he didn't have much time to explore the abilities of both eyes. Now is the perfect time to put it to the test. But just as he was about to do more experiments, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his right eye. A line of bloody tears flowed uncontrollably from his eyes. Obito covered his eyes. I almost forgot, I don't have Hashirama cells right now, so I can't counteract the side effects of the Mangekyou Sharingan. And he looked himself up and down at his small body. I'm only 5 years old, still too young. Maintaining the kaleidoscope for extended periods won't be good for my body. To avoid becoming as weak and sickly as Weasel, it's best to use these eyes sparingly for now. With that thought in mind, Obito deactivated his Sharingan. He was somewhat confused. Ming Ming met Lin after her death and fell into a deep sleep with her, which could be considered a good ending. So how did she suddenly return to the past? What could he do if he went back in time? Etc. He suddenly remembered that at this point in time, Rin, Minato-sensei, and Kushina were still alive, Nagato hadn't turned evil, and the Uchiha were still the largest clan in Konoha. Ha ha ha, ha 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 ha. Obito couldn't help but burst into wild laughter. He knew what he was about to do. But as he laughed, his voice became hoarse, and tears streamed down his face. He had no doubt that he possessed the ability to change the future. Not only did he know a vast amount of information about the future, but he also had dual kaleidoscopes. He dared to roam freely throughout the entire ninja world with just one eye, let alone two. How could he possibly lose? But precisely because of this, he felt a tremendous sense of absurdity. After the infinite Tsukuyomi plan was completely thwarted, he came to realize a fact. He was not a savior, but an executioner. He brought even more despair to this already battered ninja world. Minato, the leader of the Uchiha clan, the misfortunes of Naruto's family, the corruption and depravity of Akatsuki, the hundreds of lives lost by the Uchiha clan, and the countless lives lost in the Fourth Shinobi World War, all are more or less related to him. It all started when he witnessed Rin's death and, in despair, awakened his Mangekyou Sharingan. My divine might is hard to hide my tears. He's simply the biggest beast in the ninja world. That's why he selflessly shielded Naruto from the attack, even if it wasn't enough to atone for his sins, he wanted to atone for even a little bit. Yet now, this beast can actually go back in time and personally atone for the sins he committed. How ironic. Good people don't get good rewards, but bad people can be redeemed? This world is too surreal. He doesn't know if he's gone mad, or if the god who brought him back has gone mad. Why did he receive such preferential treatment? He doesn't deserve it. In this timeline, nothing had yet happened, and no one felt the pain within the long gate. Therefore, the values of Jiraiya, Minato's mentor, still hold true. Mutual understanding between people is possible. After all, good people are always innocent and kind. Even if they know what the future holds, most people will forgive them as long as they are willing to repent and start anew. But he couldn't forgive himself. Those scenes of hell he created with his own hands lingered in his mind like carvings, and even if he went back to the past, he couldn't pretend that none of it had happened. But no matter how hard a beast tries to go back in time, he will still be the same beast. But if a beast goes back in time and does nothing, then he's not even as good as a beast. Although he knew he was unworthy, he had to do everything in his power to ensure that Minato-sensei, Kushina, and Naruto Uzumaki had happy families, that the Akatsuki truly became the dawn of a new era, and that the Uchiha clan was spared annihilation. As for Lin, he will protect her personally. He wants to bring peace to the world and create a world where Lin can live happily. Chapter 2. If possible, Obito even hoped to help Madara out of his misery. Although Madara killed Rin and led him astray, Obito had now become one of the good guys. In this world, being a good person is incredibly difficult. Naruto's survival of his former self is simply a matter of luck. Obito couldn't help but shake his head. He then calmed down and began to analyze the current situation. The timing of his rebirth was actually quite special. Now, the Second Shinobi World War has ended. Kakashi's father, Sakumo Hatake, the White Fang of Konoha, did not die on the battlefield, but took his own life. Kakashi suffered a blow and became depressed. Today, in order to prove himself, he applied to graduate from the Ninja Academy early. In his past life, he would also have been broken down by this incident. At that time, he was actually very insecure, afraid of not being able to keep up with Kakashi and losing his best friend. He was even more afraid that Rin would follow Kakashi and disappear from his world. So, to escape reality, he ran away. Until, Lin came to find him. It was Lin's comfort and encouragement that helped him pull himself together. It was at that time that Lin made the promise, "I will always be watching over you." Because of this promise, Lin waited for him for a long time on the road to the underworld. History seems to have become a cycle, and he was reborn at this juncture. After seeing Lin in the underworld, he suddenly realized his place in Lin's heart. The bond between him and Lin wasn't fragile. In fact, one could say that even if he abandoned the whole world, Lin never abandoned him. Lin cared for him more than the whole world combined. Therefore, even if Kakashi became the sun in the sky, he still couldn't take Rin away from him. And the future proved that he, Uchiha Obito, was the true genius. Kakashi is a complete waste. After all these years, he still hasn't improved. Therefore, we should get that good-for-nothing back now, otherwise, given the scale of the Fourth Shinobi World War, Kakashi won't even be qualified to meet Kaguya. Judging by the time, Rin should be coming to find me soon. I'll meet up with Rin first, and then I'll go find Kakashi. Thinking this, Obito activated Kamui again and returned to reality. Because the war had just ended, Konoha village was still filled with a somber atmosphere. Fortunately, this has not affected the children yet. On the training grounds surrounding the ninja academy, 5 boys and girls gathered together, enjoying their lunch break with innocent smiles on their faces. Although the will of fire, passed down from the first Hokage Hashirama Senju, has been distorted by the Konoha leadership, it is still the foundation of the village, and its core principles must be followed by future generations. Compared to the Warring States period when 4 or 5-year-old children had to go to the battlefield, the children in Konoha were indeed more fortunate. Obito appeared beside one of the few large trees in the training ground, hiding his figure in the shadows and quietly watching this scene. This is a habit he has developed over many years. Having infiltrated Konoha multiple times in his previous life, returning to Konoha felt like coming home. He knew exactly where to hide and where the sensory barrier wouldn't detect him. Perhaps even the members of the barrier squad and the reconnaissance squad don't understand the entire layout of Konoha as well as he does. The main reason for appearing here is that there are a large number of white Zetsu lurking in Konoha village, all of whom are Madara's eyes and ears. It's best to avoid them if possible, as discovering their special abilities would be a big problem. Although he's not very afraid of spots now, he's just an old man nearing the end of his life. If he wanted to, he could risk losing his eyesight and his body falling apart, using Kamui to teleport there and fight Madara. I doubt Ban can beat him. But he was afraid of implicating those around him. Saving is much harder than destroying. With a reckless personality like Naruto Uzumaki, if he's unlucky, he might not only fail to save the world, but also end up like his past self. He wasn't going to gamble with luck right now. However, unlike his previous life, he is no longer a ghost walking in the ninja world. He has a legitimate and legal identity and doesn't need to hide in the shadows all the time. With that thought in mind, he stepped out of the shadows. In the afternoon in Konoha village, the sun shone brightly, and he basked in its warmth, feeling a long-lost sense of comfort. I haven't felt this way since I fell into darkness. Just then, a little girl with purple face paint walked into the training field, seemingly looking around, searching for someone. The girl was both anxious and excited, her bright, lively eyes blinked rapidly across her small face. Obito's gaze immediately fell upon her. He hadn't seen Lin so vibrant and alive for a very, very long time, a very, very long time. Her existence makes this world shine, and is the reason why the world has never become hell. Obito couldn't help but shed tears. He longed to go over and give Rin a big hug. He desperately needed Lin's warmth to melt away the gloom that had accumulated in his heart over the years. But it wasn't until this moment that he realized that after all these years, he was still the same. He could stand up to the whole world for Lin, but he didn't dare to reveal his feelings to her. He froze on the spot, hesitant and anxious, wanting to take action, but ultimately doing nothing. Seemingly sensing Obito's burning gaze, Rin turned her head to look. The girl immediately fixed her gaze on him, and upon noticing his tears, the joy on her face faded considerably, and she ran over with concern. "Obito, what's wrong? Why are you crying?" Lin raised her little hand and wiped away his tears. Obito sniffed and then gave a big smile. "It's nothing, just a little bit of weathering." As soon as Obito finished speaking, Rin hugged him. Lin hugged him tightly, as if she wanted to bear some of his pain. "Obito, you really can't lie. No matter what happens, I'll be by your side. If you want to cry, just cry it out." Rin didn't know what Obito had gone through, but she sensed that Obito needed her embrace and her warmth. Obito's tears, which he had managed to hold back, flowed again. At this moment, he was no longer the mastermind behind the ninja world, but just a little boy who had lost something he cherished for a long time and then regained it. He hugged Lin and cried loudly, like a child. He wanted to cry out all the pent-up emotions, pain, and grievances he had accumulated over the years. It took him a long time to stop crying. Lin's shoulder was soaked with his tears. He released Lin somewhat shyly, saying, "I'm sorry, Lin, we just met, and you witnessed such an embarrassing scene." Lin shook her head before he could finish speaking. "Obito, can you tell me what happened?" Despite its gentle tone, there was an undeniable air of authority in it. Lin felt so many emotions in that hug. The despair and oppression nearly crushed her, while the obsession and love nearly melted her away. If they hadn't just met that morning, she would have almost thought that Obito and she had been separated for many years before finally reuniting. So she really wanted to know what Obito had gone through in that short afternoon. Chapter 3. Rin was actually wrong. Obito was a very good liar, he fooled many people. Hatake Uchiha, Sasuke Uchiha, the Kage of various villages, Nagato, Konan, and so on. Even his teacher, Minato Namikaze, didn't recognize him. But Rin wasn't wrong, Obito wouldn't lie to her. Even something as simple as being reborn wasn't something Obito wanted to hide from Rin. He smiled and said, "Lin, I'll tell you everything, but it's a very, very long story, too long to tell in a short time. Let's find some time to tell it slowly, okay?" Lin felt relieved and gave a heavy mmm. Obito smiled, took Rin's hand, and headed towards the school building. "Now, let's go find Kakashi first. That good for nothing, cough cough, he's actually a genius, graduating at 5. I wonder if there's ever been a precedent like that at the Ninja Academy." Rin was led by Obito, turning her head to look at this boy who, in her memory, was somewhat insecure yet enthusiastic and lively. She sensed that Obito was different from before. Not only were his eyes much sharper, but he had also become more domineering. Rin's face flushed slightly. She didn't really resist this feeling, on the contrary, she could feel Obito's desire to protect her and gave her a strong sense of security. "But?" Lin asked curiously. "Obito, how did you know Kakashi was graduating?" "I just got the news and came to find you immediately." Obito chuckled. "It's also included in what I'm about to tell you, but let's keep it a secret for now. Anyway, let's find Kakashi first, we can't hide it from him anyway. To save time, I'll tell you all at once." Instantly, the worry between Lin's brows vanished. "Obito, you clearly care about Kakashi too, yet you're still so dishonest." Obito immediately felt embarrassed. Who would care about him? He's just an afterthought. Lin nodded, covered her mouth with her other small hand, and chuckled, "Okay, let's just consider it a side effect. Let's hurry, we don't have much time." And so, the two quickened their pace and arrived at the teaching building. At this moment, the entrance of the teaching building was crowded with people, most of whom were students from Class A of the first year. Obito glanced around and immediately recognized many familiar faces. Might Guy, Kurane Yui, Asuma Sarutobi, Shizune Kato, Heiate Gecko, Genma Shiranui, Yujeo Uzuki, Ebisu. Oh, and 2 gatekeepers too. As for why most of the visitors were from Class 1A, it wasn't because Kakashi was in their class that students from other classes didn't want to come and visit. Just kidding, graduating from the Ninja Academy at the age of 5 is something that might not happen even once in a lifetime, and even most of the villagers in Konoha are eager to join in the fun. However, the other classes are different from theirs. Most of the students in those classes come from ordinary families and don't have many parents who hold high positions in Konoha. They lack the necessary information and have no idea what is happening in the school building today. The common people are undoubtedly tragic. The tragedy lies in the fact that they can only drift with the tide, and even if they become ninjas, they may be used as cannon fodder and die in the war. Or, even if you are just staying peacefully in the village, you might be caught in the crossfire of a powerful attack and die on the spot. This is true even in the most peaceful village of Konoha. However, ordinary people also have their happy aspects. They are not troubled by knowing too much and can live relatively carefree lives. Unlike their class, where even this highly confidential information was widely known, making people realize more deeply that the gap between people is greater than the gap between people and dogs. In his previous life, Obito knew nothing, but now he was very clear that their class was special, being the elite class of this year. Not only were the children of various bloodline families and secret technique families gathered there, but even the son of the Anbyo captain commander and the Hokage's son were among them. However, even in the elite class, the most successful ones in the end, besides the genius Kakashi, were actually him and Might Guy, the 2 worst performers. He didn't need to be mentioned, he became the second sage of 6 paths, almost surpassing all living beings, and single-handedly confronting the entire world. Guy is ridiculously strong. Not only did he repeatedly thwart Kakashi and Naruto's plans and directly confront the tailed beasts, but he also kicked half of Madara's body to pieces. By then, Madara had become the 10 Tails Jinchuriki, capable of creating and destroying the world with a mere gesture. Obito had also entered the 6-path state and understood perfectly well that all beings below the 6 paths were mere ants. Even the former god of shinobi, Hashirama Senju, was nothing more than a slightly larger ant in his eyes. But Kai managed to challenge a god with a mortal body. Even if the price was high, the damage he inflicted on Madara was real. It's said that Guy's move was originally intended for Kakashi. I wonder what Kakashi was thinking at the time. Speaking of which, Naruto was also a loser, and Jiraiya, one of the legendary Sunin and Minato's teacher, was also a loser in his childhood. Does this mean that losers are the strongest? Thinking about this, Obito couldn't help but laugh. Obito, what happy thing have you thought of? You can't help but pout. Lin turned her head and asked with some curiosity. Obito suddenly felt like teasing Rin, so he whispered, Rin, who do you think will be the most successful in our class in the future, excluding Kakashi, of course. Rin smiled and said, of course it's you, Obito. You're the future Hokage. Obito's heart sank slightly. Hokage? Impossible. Never in this lifetime. Lin, just tell me what's on your mind. I don't need comforting right now. Rin was a little angry, and said huffing, I wasn't trying to comfort you. I genuinely believe that Obito, you can do anything in the future. Obito's heart is warm. It turns out that Rin had trusted him so much since they were children. He was even a little confused about whether his childhood dream was to become Hokage or to gain everyone's approval, especially Rin's. He continued, and besides me. Lin hesitated for a moment, glancing at the other classmates before thinking for a while, maybe it's Kai, after all, he's Kakashi's lifelong rival. Okay, this is really boring. Obito was surprised that Rin could guess so accurately. Seeing this, Lin was very pleased with herself. Is that really what Obito thinks? Obito nodded. There was no need to think about it, this was simply the truth. Just as the two were chatting, the doors of the teaching building suddenly opened. The group, who were still whispering, immediately looked towards the gate. For a moment, there was complete silence. In reality, this exam was more of a formality, since not everyone is qualified to submit a graduation application. Most of the students present understood this, but when the moment of truth arrived, they couldn't help feeling nervous. Only Obito remained completely unmoved. Today, the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, is the chief examiner. Given his indecisive nature, would he be willing to come without absolute certainty? Chapter 4. In Obito's view, this graduation exam was nothing but a show. Hiruzen Sarutobi needs a compelling topic to deflect the negative impact of Sakumo Hatake's death. Furthermore, with Konoha losing a top-tier fighter, various factions are stirring, and war may be imminent. Without creating a role model, how can we motivate so many Ninja Academy students to work harder, graduate early, and become cannon fodder on the battlefield? Haha, that's quite a clever scheme. Obito couldn't help but sneer. Thinking back to his past life, he worked hard to graduate early, barely managing to use his clone technique in front of the examiners, thinking that this level wouldn't be enough to pass the test, and he was very frustrated. As soon as he left, the teacher immediately brought him a ninja headband. He thought his efforts had finally paid off, and he was so excited he almost jumped for joy. But actually, it was because the Third Shinobi World War was getting more and more intense, and they, the new sprouts of Konoha, needed to sacrifice themselves. Sigh, he was so stupid when he was little. Just as he was reminiscing, Kakashi walked out of the school building, his small body adorned with a bright headband. That's amazing. Yes, that's really amazing. I swear, I'm graduating early too. That's so cool. All the students' eyes lit up, even those from powerful clans. Young men from wealthy families may be well off and have handled all sorts of ninja tools since childhood, but ninja headbands are different. They are standard equipment and cannot be worn openly by those not officially registered. Things are valued for their rarity. Nowadays, anyone who can get their hands on a headband and wear it openly will be incredibly proud of themselves among their friends. Even Obito, looking at Kakashi's arrogant demeanor, couldn't help but feel a little jealous. Rin was the happiest among them. She stepped forward and smiled at Kakashi. Did you pass? Congratulations! However, Kakashi simply gave a lazy ah. Obito was so furious at their dismissive attitude that he couldn't help but grit his teeth in hatred. Obito could understand Kakashi's feelings at that moment. Even if your father is dead, you shouldn't treat Rin like this. Isn't Rin good enough to you, Kakashi? So good that he's often jealous. Obito really wanted to punch Kakashi and make him rethink his words to Rin. However, Kakashi seemed to have misunderstood Obito's angry and frantic expression. Kakashi's mood suddenly improved a lot, even the gloom on his face dissipated considerably, and he couldn't help but tease her. What, Obito, aren't you going to congratulate me? Obito snorted coldly. Kakashi was definitely trying to provoke him on purpose. He had fallen for that trick in his past life. This time, it was his turn to fight back. Kakashi, you think you're so great for becoming a genin at 5? In my opinion, you're a complete idiot. Kakashi was taken aback. In his mind, shouldn't Obito be furious, red-faced, utter some harsh words, and then run away without looking back? Then Lin chased after him relentlessly, and tried her best to comfort him? As a true supporter of Rin, Kakashi thought this was fine. But now, why is Obito stealing his lines? Who's the idiot? So he wasn't going to back down either. You idiot Obito, you don't understand anything, so just stay here until graduation. Seeing this, Obito wasn't angry, he simply couldn't resist using his most proficient deception mode. In his past life, he had fooled many people, and countless geniuses had been completely misled by him. He hadn't tried it on Kakashi yet, so this was a good opportunity to give it a try. so, he faced Kakashi and adopted a shrewd and calculating demeanor, even though he was only 5 years old and still a little kid. This demeanor was somewhat comical. Kakashi, do you think I'm joking with you? Let me analyze it for you. Obito extended one finger. First, after graduation, you'll be doing a lot of low-level tasks. You're still growing, and you should be exercising. Doing tasks will waste time and may not even provide good exercise. Obito extended another finger. Secondly, after experiencing numerous low-level missions, you're finally ready for high-level missions. These missions involve intense combat, but you're still young, and the strain on your body will hinder your development. As an adult, your body will be very weak. Obito extended his third root finger. Chakra is essentially a combination of mental and physical energy, neither can be lacking. Your physical weakness will affect your total chakra reserves. If you aspire to become Hokage in the future, insufficient chakra reserves will be a major problem. Actually, Obito wasn't entirely lying. During the Fourth Shinobi World War, he fought Kakashi many times and knew Kakashi's weaknesses best. That means he's extremely short on mana. He was down after using Divine Might twice. Giving him Divine Might is such a waste. While Kakashi's lack of chakra was largely due to the Mangekyou Sharingan, for a master of the cage level, a single Sharingan should not be a burden. In particular, compared to Naruto Uzumaki next door, Kakashi's weaknesses are magnified infinitely. Look at Naruto, because he's the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, he's practically an unkillable cockroach. He has so much chakra that it could cover the entire allied shinobi forces. Even if he's temporarily exhausted, he just sits on the ground to rest for a while and immediately becomes energetic again. Kakashi, on the other hand, just collapsed and lay there like a corpse. When he fought Kakashi, if he hadn't held back an entire Pacific Ocean's worth of water, Kakashi would have been choked to death long ago. As a classmate, it's embarrassing, utterly embarrassing. Therefore, in this lifetime, we must make Kakashi pay attention to this issue no matter what. Kakashi did notice it, and a look of surprise appeared in his eyes. Even Lin, who was standing next to her, gaped open. Rin couldn't help but ask, Obito, is everything you're saying true? Then Kakashi, wouldn't it be better if he hadn't graduated? After a pause, Rin continued, but Obito, you were acting like a little adult just now. I always felt that only the Chunin instructors who were responsible for teaching us would say those things. Kakashi also found this quite surreal, and his dead fish eyes rolled upwards. When did Obito, that idiot, develop this kind of logical thinking ability? Moreover, what he said made a lot of sense, and he had already believed most of it. Perhaps becoming a ninja prematurely wasn't the best choice after all. But Obito, I have no interest in becoming Hokage. That's a dream only someone like you would have. I just want to become a ninja as soon as possible and prove myself. And since I've become a ninja, I should complete my missions properly. Ninjas are born for missions, those who can't complete their missions are useless. As for everything else, I don't care. Kakashi looked completely unconcerned. Obito was furious that Kakashi was ignoring his earnest advice after all that talking. If it weren't for the fact that they were in front of their classmates, he would have even wanted to slap Kakashi. He snorted coldly and leaned close to Kakashi's ear. Kakashi, just because Sakumo-senpai died, you've become like this? Don't make me look down on you. Chapter 5. Then, Obito glanced around and lowered his voice even further. I want to tell you that your father was never a good-for-nothing, but a great hero in my eyes. Furthermore, there are many suspicious points in this matter. I suspect that no matter what choice Senior White Fang makes, whether he saves his comrades or completes the mission, the outcome will be the same. Do you believe me? Kakashi frowned. No matter what, he was still just a 5-year-old child. At this moment, he couldn't help but grab Obito's collar and question him. Obito, what did you mean by your last words? Explain yourself. Obito shrugged, glanced at his classmates, and whispered a reminder. There are some things that are inconvenient to say here. Do you want to make it so that everyone knows? If you really want to know the reason, Lin and I will visit your house tonight, and we'll talk about it then. Kakashi looked at Obito's sincere and wise expression and gradually loosened his collar. I really don't understand. In just a few days, Obito seems like a completely different person. Although he still retains some traces of his past self, he has matured a lot and is no longer stupid. Could it be because of him? But it wasn't Obito who died, it was him. Humph, come if you want. Kakashi shrugged and walked past Obito. I still need to register at the Hokage building, so I'll have to go now. Goodbye. After saying that, Kakashi walked through the crowd and gradually disappeared into the distance. Obito watched Kakashi's departing figure, a thoughtful expression on his face. Just then, he felt a tap on his shoulder. Rin leaned closer, looking suspicious. Obito, what did you and Kakashi talk about just now? You almost got into a fight. I didn't say anything, just told him we'd be visiting his house that evening. Rin was somewhat surprised. Kakashi agreed. It's no wonder Lin was surprised. Since White Fang's death, Kakashi has locked himself in his house and hasn't come to school for several days. She and Obito visited him several times, but were always turned away. Obito nodded. Yes, I agreed. Lin immediately breathed a sigh of relief. She had noticed Kakashi's recent condition and could only watch helplessly as he struggled to cope. As expected, only Obito can change Kakashi. Lin suddenly realized she had bumped into something. Then, as if remembering something, she slapped her forehead. Oh, I almost forgot, we have class this afternoon. Dato, let's go back. Lin tugged at Obito's clothes. Are we in class? Obito showed slight resistance. If we go back now, we won't hear Lin say, I'll always be watching over you. To be honest, Obito felt a little resentful that they had just left. However, once he remembered that in his past life, his willfulness had caused them both to be late and punished, he dismissed the idea. He smiled slightly. Let's go back. And so, the two returned to the classroom, chatting and laughing. Kakashi's graduation exam was held at noon, and he had to continue attending classes in the afternoon. Therefore, after visiting Kakashi's graduation exam site, most of the students gradually returned to their classrooms. Not long after, the Chunin teacher walked in, and the class officially began. Today's lesson is on ninjutsu. I will focus on explaining the principles of the three body techniques. Listen carefully, everyone, this is essential knowledge for graduation. Chunin sensei started writing and drawing on the blackboard with chalk. Having just experienced Kakashi's graduation, most of the students were inspired and listened very attentively to the lesson. Obito also showed some seriousness. Those who don't like reading the background information can skip to the second half of chapter 7, which is closely connected to the content preceding this text. The background information is purely something I wrote because I wanted to, and it doesn't affect the story. The ninjutsu course was the subject he disliked the most in his previous life. It only taught the most basic content, including the three body techniques, chakra extraction technique, and chakra control. However, these most basic contents involve a lot of dry and boring knowledge points, making people drowsy. The Ninja Academy would dedicate more than one class period each day to teaching this topic, patiently and tirelessly, continuing until graduation. In Obito's previous life, this was simply a waste of his life. What he wanted to learn were powerful and cool ninjutsu, not these hide-and-seek tricks. Many years later, Obito gradually realized that this idea was wrong. Obito traveled to many ninja villages and witnessed various methods of training ninjas. Some villages often start by teaching children all sorts of powerful ninjutsu, which greatly enhances their combat abilities once they learn them. However, they found it difficult to advance further, their strength was essentially locked down, and even with a bit of luck, they could only become cannon fodder, used as cannon fodder in the Fourth Shinobi World War. The ninjas of Konoha village are rather special. Often, when they first graduate from the ninja academy, they are incredibly weak, but as long as they find a suitable instructor, some ninjas will unleash unimaginable talents and reach a level that other villages cannot comprehend in a short period of time. At first, Obito thought that Konoha was a place of outstanding people and abundant resources, with various clans possessing bloodline limit techniques emerging one after another, and they were all among the top clans from the Warring States period. It was normal for a few strong individuals to occasionally appear. But later, he gradually discovered that, apart from their own Uchiha clan, these bloodline limit families actually didn't produce many strong individuals. On the contrary, many ordinary geniuses have emerged one after another. Because of this phenomenon, Obito did some in-depth research and gradually discovered that it was Tobirama Senju, that cunning old fox, who had written many methods for becoming stronger into the most basic techniques. These skills are often neglected by those who have the means to inherit them, only commoners with no resources will diligently practice them. The Konoha Ninja Academy is the fundamental reason why these ordinary geniuses become strong. Of course, since Obito spent most of his later life playing high-level games, his definition of a strong person was a little too high, at least one had to reach the level of Kage to be considered a strong person. In Obito's view, there are only 5 ways to become a strong person in the entire ninja world. The first is bloodline. Bloodline is the most direct and effective way to become stronger. For example, the Uchiha clan, as direct descendants of the Sage of Six Paths, possessed considerable combat power upon awakening their Sharingan. Their 3-tomo Sharingan was considered top tier among Jonin, and their Mangekyou Sharingan could instantly elevate them to the ranks of top tier powerhouses. The reason why the Uchiha clan was wiped out in their previous life was because they were feared by many. Others spent decades painstakingly cultivating, only to have their skills diminished by a single awakening of the Sharingan by an Uchiha. Who could accept that? This bottom-of-the-barrel student, once awakened the Kaleidoscope Sharingan, though only with one eye, combined with Hashirama's cells and Tobi's possession, slaughtered the hidden mist village's Anbu like dogs. Why did he agree to it without even thinking when Hatake came looking for him after wiping out his clan in his past life? It wasn't just about acquiring a few Sharingan eyes, the bigger concern was that one day, some Uchiha might awaken a strange Mangekyou Sharingan, causing changes to the plan. Although his Kamui is powerful and can almost ignore most ninjutsu, Kota Amatsukami and Tsukuyomi can still threaten him. Who knows what else might come next? What if there's something to seal off space, or even something to stop time? He'd be dead then too. Therefore, they had no choice but to let their own kind die first. Chapter 6. This shows how important it is to have good ancestors. Of course, it's not impossible to mutate if one doesn't have a good bloodline. For example, combining several chakra nature transformations can also create bloodline limits and bloodline elimination. The Tsuchikage Onaki and the Mizukage Terumi may followed this path. Or, like him, one could have interstitial cells transplanted to become stronger by acquiring someone else's bloodline. Many people have done transplants, including Uchiha Madara. But what impressed Obito the most was Kabuto Yakushi. This guy was definitely a genius. He changed his own genes by transplanting other people's bloodlines, breaking the limits of mortals and reaching a higher level of strength. Obito harbored deep fear of Kabuto Yakushi, who, having mastered the sage mode of Ryokai Cave, may have already surpassed the level of an ordinary Kage. Therefore, in the entire ninja world, bloodline largely determines everything. If you don't have a bloodline, you have to find a way to create one. Even Madara had to bite off a piece of Hashirama's flesh to open the Rinnegan. Besides bloodline, the second way to become stronger is through secret techniques. In fact, many secret techniques are also related to bloodlines. For example, the Konoha Inoshikacho trio, if they didn't possess the bloodlines of Akimichi, Nara, or Yamanaka, it wouldn't be impossible for them to master their respective secret techniques, but it would be extremely difficult. The Union AI lineage is considered the pinnacle of secret arts families. Through their secret arts, each generation can reach the level of a kage, or even become a powerful figure within the kage realm. For example, the third Raikage fought against 10,000 IWA ninja and died. If he hadn't lacked wide-range attack ninjutsu, the outcome would have been uncertain. Besides bloodline and secret techniques, the third way to become stronger is to possess a massive amount of chakra. Quantitative change can lead to qualitative change. When the quantity reaches a certain level, it will transform into a formidable master. Kisame's strength largely stems from the chakra boost provided by Samehada. Of course, when it comes to massive amounts of chakra, the most representative example is the Jinchuriki. Every perfect Jinchuriki is a master at the kage level, and the Nine Tails Jinchuriki surpasses even the level of an ordinary kage. The Ten Tails Jinchuriki is comparable to the Sage of Six Paths. However, becoming the Ten Tails Jinchuriki is not easy. It requires extremely high standards of one's bloodline and mental will, otherwise, one cannot even suppress the Ten Tails. The fourth way to become stronger is through the Konoha Ninja Academy system. How can an ordinary genius become a strong person if they have neither bloodline nor Jinchuriki? The answer is to diligently complete all courses at the Konoha Ninja Academy and be fortunate enough to receive guidance from renowned teachers. Because of its favorable conditions, Konoha is a relatively peaceful village in the ninja world. Therefore, ninjas from Konoha can generally study systematically at the Ninja Academy for several years until graduation. Don't underestimate the power of systematic thinking. Although the Ninja Academy only teaches the most basic content, the more basic the content, the more it points to the essence. For example, the three bodies technique. The three bodies technique itself is not difficult to learn. As long as you remember the chakra flow path and try it a few times, you can release it by following the instructions. For those who possess the Sharingan, it is even easier to perfectly replicate it with just a glance. However, when the Ninja Academy teaches the three-body technique, they also teach the underlying principles. The techniques of creating clones and transforming are both visual illusions, which are the most basic principles of illusion. The substitution technique involves summoning an object to take the hit for oneself, which involves the most basic principles of summoning and sealing techniques. The illusion techniques, summoning techniques, and sealing techniques behind the three bodies technique represent some of the highest level techniques in the ninja world. These techniques can completely steer the battle in a different direction. Tailed beasts are incredibly powerful. Their sheer size and strength are enough to give ordinary ninjas a run for their money. Furthermore, since they are chakra polymers, they are virtually immune to most ninjutsu. Tailed beasts also possess tailed beast balls capable of instantly destroying a village. Even for experts at the kage level, it is difficult to suppress a tailed beast if they do not have a variety of methods. However, tailed beasts are countered by genjutsu and sealing techniques, but can be summoned using summoning techniques. If these three techniques are used well, tailed beasts that are difficult for others to deal with can even be used as a means of victory. In addition, many advanced ninjutsu and even forbidden techniques are closely related to genjutsu, summoning techniques, and sealing techniques. Impure World Reincarnation is a summoning jutsu, and Reaper Death Seal is a sealing jutsu. These jutsu can even completely change the course of a battle, but to learn them, you need a good enough foundation, and these foundations are taught at the Ninja Academy. Furthermore, the three-body technique demands a high degree of precision and timing in its execution. The process of training the three-body technique can effectively develop a ninja's comprehensive abilities, including observation skills, chakra control skills, chakra perception skills, as well as adaptability and instantaneous reaction skills. Therefore, a ninja who truly masters the three-body techniques to its fullest extent is a very well-rounded individual. Initially, such ninjas might not be very strong because they had not mastered powerful escape techniques. But as he grows, the foundation he built from childhood will become increasingly important. If he happens to have a renowned teacher to guide him at this time, he will learn everything quickly because of his solid foundation, and may even suddenly become incomprehensible to others in a short period of time. For example, the Flying Thunder God technique was taught to many people by Minato, including himself, Kakashi, and Rin, but none of them ultimately mastered it. The principle behind Flying Thunder God technique is to use a sealing technique to imprint the Flying Thunder God mark, then use a sensory technique to perceive the mark, and finally control the chakra on the mark to perform reverse summoning, thus achieving instantaneous teleportation. Alternatively, one could use sealing techniques to create a barrier remotely, and then use perception techniques and reverse spirit communication to transfer the attack. Learning the Flying Thunder God technique requires a high level of chakra control, chakra perception, sealing techniques, and summoning skills. To apply it in actual combat, one also needs adaptability, fast reflexes, and most importantly, spatial awareness. It's really difficult to gather all of these together. The Flying Thunder God technique requires extremely precise control. Even Obito, who possesses unparalleled spatial awareness, couldn't master it because of his lack of other fundamental skills. Throughout the entire history of Konoha, only Tobirama Senju and Minato Sensei truly grasped the basics. Other ninjas, even if they understood the principles, could only barely execute the Flying Thunder God formation by working together in groups. However, all the conditions required for the Flying Thunder God technique can be fully met during the practice of the three bodies technique, without missing a single one. Obito believed that while some people might not be able to learn the Flying Thunder God technique due to a lack of talent, it wasn't true that everyone was unable to learn it because of a lack of talent. I'm afraid many people are like him, they didn't pay attention to it during their school years, didn't put in the hard work, and thought that they were done with it once they could barely perform the three-body techniques. After that, he began practicing more powerful and cooler-looking ninjutsu. If he had put the same effort he used to practice the Great Fireball technique into the three bodies technique in his previous life, how could he not have mastered the Flying Thunder God technique, given his later spatial perception abilities? But who can blame me when the Fireball jutsu looks so much better than the three bodies technique? Sigh, I regret it now. Chapter 7. For example, Orochimaru's hidden trump cards. Whether it's the Orokai-style substitution technique, or various forbidden techniques involving summoning and sealing techniques, along with his profound knowledge and research abilities, he is the epitome of a genius and academic prodigy at the Konoha Ninja Academy. And the little girl who replenished his mana during the Fourth Shinobi World War, Sakura. She doesn't have a superior bloodline, but she possesses an exceptionally high level of chakra control and medical ninjutsu skills at a young age. These are not things that can be mastered simply by bloodline mutation, they require a great deal of theoretical knowledge. It's likely that she was a top student, similar to Orochimaru, back in the Ninja Academy. A similar example is his clansman, Uchiha Shisui, whose name, Shisui of the body flicker technique, was mostly earned through his shadow clone technique and body flicker technique, although his Sharingan genjutsu certainly played a part in it. Furthermore, when Sasuke Uchiha fought Madara, he clearly lacked Madara's combat experience, had one less Rinnegan, and had less chakra than Madara, the Ten Tails Jinchuriki. In every aspect, he was inferior to Madara, so logically Madara should have crushed him. But in a real fight, Sasuke managed to suppress Madara in the limited one-on-one rounds, causing Madara to suffer a lot of losses. In Obito's view, although Madara was a strong fighter, most of his combat experience came from the Warring States period, consisting of wide-ranging and powerful techniques. In terms of refined execution, he was not as good as Sasuke, the academic genius of Konoha. Sasuke's ability to use the Rinnegan's ability to switch positions so skillfully is likely due to the foundation he laid while practicing the three bodies technique. Therefore, Obito considered most of the knowledge taught at the Konoha Ninja Academy to be useful, and extremely useful. Minato, for example, was born into a commoner family and could not learn advanced ninjutsu, so he could only practice the three body techniques to the point of exhaustion, but that did not hinder him at all. After learning about the Flying Thunder God technique, he quickly mastered it and became a killer who could move freely on the battlefield. Obito had to admire Tobirama Senju's foresight. There was a profound reason why the three-body technique was a required subject for graduating from the Ninja Academy. However, he also had to admit that Tobirama Senju's move was truly insidious. The three-body technique seems quite ordinary, most bloodline clans wouldn't waste time on it. Only commoner ninjas without resources would put in the hard work. Even if you master the three-body techniques, you still need to learn advanced ninjutsu from the Scroll of Sealing to become stronger. However, the Book of Sealing is in the hands of the Hokage's lineage. Unless one has a bloodline limit like Shisui, a commoner genius who wants to become stronger must become a follower of the Hokage's lineage. In this way, the power of the Hokage's lineage and the various clans in the village are maintained in balance. Ha! The cunning old devil with 1,000 hands. As for the fifth way to become stronger, it is through immortal techniques. Sage mode is closely related to the three holy lands, but unfortunately Obito didn't have much access to information on this. The only thing he could speculate on was that the learning conditions for Sage mode were related to one's soul and physical constitution. Orochimaru couldn't learn it, but Kabuto did, because Kabuto's soul was more complete than Orochimaru's, and his bloodline had mutated, making his physique stronger. The same goes for Minato. He was never seen using Sage mode in his lifetime, but he could instantly activate it in Edo Tensei state. It's possible that he became the Nine Tails Jinchuriki, which enhanced his soul and physique in some way. Besides the 5 categories mentioned above, the last way to become stronger is to seek external help. Sasori's puppets, Deidara's clay, including Kakuzu's earth grudge fear and Kisame's same heta, all involve external forces to varying degrees. Of course, these external forces are also included in the methods mentioned above. The reason I'm bringing this up separately is because Obito was paralyzed by 600 billion explosive tags. Although these explosive tags were probably created by Konan using her divine paper-wielding technique, they were part of her own power. However, explosive tags can indeed be bought with money. If Kakuzu were to use all his earnings to buy explosive tags and combine them with Tobirama Senju's multiplicative explosive tags, the combined effect would be quite terrifying. As someone who experienced it firsthand, Obito felt that the power of those 600 billion explosive tags was probably even greater than Hashirama's would release or Madara's perfect Susanoo. That move would be considered a powerful attack even at the 6 paths level. If used properly, it could have seriously injured Kaguya. If he hadn't been able to intangibly transform into Izanagi, he would have been blown to bits. However, now that he has obtained dual Kamui, both his teleportation speed and the duration of his intangibility have been greatly enhanced. If Konan were to do it again, she probably wouldn't be able to do anything to him. He could even use his left eye to redirect the explosion. Therefore, upon careful consideration, there are probably not many means left in the entire ninja world that can endanger him. In short, all methods of becoming stronger have limitations, but many can be combined, and the foundation laid by the Konoha Ninja Academy is a perfect example of this. In his past life, he was a loser, and even after becoming a powerful figure, he relied heavily on his own eye techniques. In this lifetime, it's time to solidify my foundation. Therefore, Obito listened especially attentively to this ninjutsu lesson, even opening his textbook, which he had barely touched in his previous life, to carefully study the knowledge points inside. Rin witnessed this scene and couldn't help but smile with relief. Obito, he really has grown up. And so, time slipped away unnoticed, and soon, the class was over. Alright, that concludes today's lesson. Students can take a short break, and then meet back at the outdoor training area. After the teacher announced the end of Get Out of Class, she left the classroom. Ninja academies are places for training ninjas. In addition to various theoretical knowledge, they also have a lot of outdoor courses, including combat, throwing ninja tools, survival drills, teamwork, stress resistance training, and so on. It can be said that Ninja Academy students spend almost half of their time outdoors. After class, Obito naturally approached Rin, and the two walked together towards the training ground. Rin squinted and asked, "Obito, you've actually started reading today? Don't you usually hate these boring and tedious things?" Obito's eyes were deep. "Rin, people always grow up. I don't want to be a loser anymore. I want to protect you from harm, so I need to learn many things to become stronger." Rin nodded, clenching her little fist. "Obito, do your best. First grade, Class A, assemble. Report to me for registration. We'll begin the practical group work." Shortly after arriving at the training ground, the practical training session began. For students of their age, since they can't unleash many powerful ninjutsu, practical combat lessons are mostly based on taijutsu, with at most some use of the three body techniques. As for shuriken, because children don't know their own strength and it's quite dangerous, they are not allowed to be used in battles. Obito was rather uninterested. Although practical combat was one of his favorite courses in his previous life, it was because he always felt he could defeat Kakashi. Now that he's been through too many battles, facing either kage or ninjas of similar strength, there's really no point in him coming back to bully a bunch of little kids. Chapter 8. However, at least it would be a good opportunity to practice the basics. With that in mind, Obito obediently went to report to his Chunin teacher. Obito's previous opponent was Kakashi, a result he actively requested. But now that Kakashi has graduated early, it's natural that a new opponent needs to be chosen. After thinking for a moment, the Chunin instructor said, "Obito, from now on, you'll be paired with Might Guy." The teacher grouped two students with similar abilities together based on their grades. Obito nodded. This arrangement was exactly the same as in his previous life. In his past life, he was kicked into a state of depression by Guy. He felt that it was one thing to be unable to beat Kakashi, but to be unable to beat Guy, who was also a loser, made him realize how weak he was. But now he finally understands that losing to a freak is not shameful. The teachers divided the students into groups and quickly arranged everything. Due to limited space in the training ground, a group-based sparring format was adopted, with Obito and Guy forming the last group. A bunch of kids fighting, punching, and kicking wildly, it's really not very interesting. Most of the time, Obito's mind is wandering, thinking about when to go to a Megakure and plan ahead for Akatsuki. He had deep feelings for Xiao. It wasn't just because he had promised Nagato he would bring peace to the world, he had also worked tirelessly for the development of Akatsuki. Aside from shouting slogans and claiming to be a god, Nagato basically does nothing else all day long. It was all thanks to his strategic planning and his tireless efforts, acting as both father and mother to the company, that Xiao was able to develop so quickly. The Rain Village is quite far, and he doesn't want to use Kamui's eye power. How can he get there? Thinking about it this way, it's like being basking in the sunlight, yet still bound by the rules of reality. It feels a bit restrictive. While Obito was lost in his daydreams, it was time for him to face off against Guy. "Obito, Guy, step forward and form hand seals." Obito had no choice but to put aside his thoughts and go to the center of the training ground with Guy, where they formed a hand seal of opposition. "Obito, let's burn with youthful passion together." Kai grinned at him. A glint seemed to flash across his teeth. "Ha ha ha." The surrounding students burst into laughter. "What's so interesting about two losers?" "Exactly, even if we win, we'll still be at the bottom of the standings." Among them, several unfamiliar faces to Obito began to mock him. They were a group of students from small, privileged families and those with average grades. Lacking the upbringing of a wealthy family, yet believing themselves to be superior, despite their mediocre academic performance, they don't want to compete for excellence but only for mediocrity, deriving a sense of superiority from those weaker than themselves. Normally, this group is the loudest. But unfortunately, there are too many people like this in Konoha. From top to bottom, from the higher UPS to ordinary villagers, they learn nothing but how to bully, which is extremely disgusting. Obito glared at these people, then suddenly remembered his past life. In his previous life, he infiltrated Konoha with the initial intention of taking the Nine Tails away while his teacher's wife was at her weakest. After all, under normal circumstances, to seize the Nine Tails, one would have to face two powerful opponents. A master of space-time ninjutsu and a master of sealing techniques for the Nine Tails Jinchuriki. This combination is terrifying. They can run, fight, control, and heal, possessing extremely high mobility and wide-area destructive power. They are far more terrifying than the Abi combination from Kyumegakuer. The key point is that these two are still young and in the process of growing up. Who knows how far they will go in the future? Obito thought that if he gave his master and mistress more time to grow, they could use guerrilla tactics to take down the Akatsuki. Although Nagato possessed the Rinnegan, his limited mobility meant he was completely helpless against Minato. Although he himself possesses a kaleidoscope of spatial abilities, Minato-sensei can keep up. Then Kushina and Minato joined forces, using the adamantine seal in their left hand and the tailed beast ball in their right, making it clear that they couldn't escape or defeat each other. So, despite feeling sorry for his master's wife, he had no choice but to take action in Konoha village for the sake of the plan. He used the bond between good people to limit Minato's movement speed and took advantage of the leader's weakened state during childbirth to limit her power, and only then did he have a chance to seize the Nine Tails. In fact, he did succeed. He really didn't mean to kill Minato-sensei. In fact, the eldest sister was very resilient and might have survived. But then, at the crucial moment, he suddenly remembered that there were a lot of ungrateful villagers in Konoha. His anger surged, and he suddenly wanted to release the Nine Tails to teach them a lesson. I acted on impulse and did it. It was something that had been planned for a long time, but it also happened on a whim. Of all the mistakes he made, this was the most serious and the one he couldn't forgive. He didn't even know how to face Kushina, the eldest sister. In the end, Kakashi wanted to kill him, but Minato stopped him, and Minato's son, Naruto Uzumaki, forgave him. This only increased his sense of guilt. At this moment, he was even jealous. Why should this bunch of ingrates from Konoha village be protected by Minato's family? Thinking of this, his murderous intent surged. Shut up! Obito spoke sternly to the crowd that had just been mocking him. The aura of the powerful figure emerging from the mountain of corpses and sea of blood, along with the palpable killing intent, nearly terrified the group of kids. They stood frozen in place, trembling all over. If Obito hadn't retained some rationality and managed to restrain his aura somewhat, these kids would have either died or developed severe mental illnesses, ending their ninja careers. However, Obito's killing intent was only directed at specific groups of people, others didn't feel it much. Even the Chunin instructors only felt that Obito was upset by being mocked. Obito did this all the time, and everyone was used to it. So the teacher quickly said, "All right, ninjas must learn to ignore distractions and fight well. I declare the duel begin." Almost as soon as he finished speaking, Kai, who was itching to attack, launched a flying kick, shouting as he kicked, "Burn my youth!" This move is truly impressive. It doesn't rely on fancy techniques, it's just a combination of power and speed. If you're fast and accurate enough, you're invincible. Obito suffered from this move countless times in his previous life, he knew it, but he just couldn't dodge it. He couldn't help but wonder, if Kai's kick to him was like having a cheat code unlocked, and if he could kick Madara like that, would Madara have survived? As for why he can be distracted in battle now, it's simply because no matter how strong Kai is, he's still just a first-year student, and his speed is too slow in his eyes. No sooner said than done, Kai's kick landed solidly, sending Obito flying. He spun once in the air before landing. Rin, who was watching from the sidelines, became worried. Her eyes welled up with tears, and she couldn't help but call out, "Obito!" Bang! However, Obito, who was sent flying, turned into a piece of old tree root, while his true form appeared behind Guy. Kai's attack missed its mark, his technique was outdated, and his body was riddled with openings. Obito knocked Kai to the ground with a single, gentle punch. Chunin-sensei's eyes lit up, even showing some surprise. Chapter 9. The three bodies technique is indeed a basic skill, but it's quite remarkable that a first-year student can actually use it. Moreover, the reason Obito was able to defeat Guy in one move was because he timed his substitution technique perfectly. If you use it too early, Kai will notice something is wrong and stop using it. If you use it too late, you'll really get kicked away. It's precisely at this moment, when you think, "I think I've hit you, you can't dodge it, I've won," that they activate their substitution technique, making it impossible to defend against. Even if a Chunin teacher were to use this substitution jutsu himself, it wouldn't be anything special. Therefore, the Chunin instructor nodded in satisfaction and praised, "Very good, Obito, you've improved. Not only did you use the substitution jutsu, but you used it very well. The duel is over, Obito wins." The Chunin instructor took out a small booklet and began taking notes. Obito's ability to use the substitution jutsu was a huge plus, and his grade would have to be moved up a bit. Obito, however, was not very satisfied. He realized the enormous gap between himself and Minato-sensei. Minato completed most of his attack before teleporting away, so the attack arrived the moment he teleported away, without any delay, leaving Minato no time to react. Although this was due to the difference between the Flying Thunder God technique and the substitute technique, he knew from sparring with Minato that even with the substitute technique, Minato was much faster than him. He couldn't handle all the micromanagement involved. Furthermore, Minato's technique can be used in actual combat, while his, although also used in actual combat, is completely bullying children. Against a cage-level expert, it's impossible for him to have such a large opening in the attack's recovery animation. He still needs improvement. By this time, Kai had gotten up and regained his energy. As expected of someone who can fight Kakashi, "Obito, you're strong. But next time, I definitely won't lose." Kai gave a thumbs up. Obito suddenly sensed Kakashi's helplessness. After some self-assessment, he realized that under normal circumstances, he could actually use his three-tomo technique for a while in battle. With his combat experience, and the fact that he can already intangibly transform himself for a period of time with his three-tomo, although his body is still young, the strength he can exert will not be much weaker than Kakashi's when he grows up and doesn't use Kamui. That's enough time to get entangled with the shadows of each village for a while. Guy has a long way to go to defeat him. Even if Guy grows to the point where he can fight Madara, he will still be growing. When he unleashes both Kamui, he will dare to turn his back on Kagaya Otsutsuki. So this is the world of geniuses? Their abilities far surpass those of their peers, no wonder geniuses are often aloof. Obito quickly smiled at Guy and said, "I only managed to use this move with difficulty. Go find Kakashi, he's your lifelong rival. And I can help you find him." "Really?" Kai exclaimed excitedly. Compared to Obito, Kakashi was still more important. "Really?" Obito grinned slyly. He didn't want to get entangled with Guy, so he could only ask Kakashi to do it. The two laughed and retreated back into the crowd. Apart from the students who were still too shocked to speak and the more knowledgeable teachers, no one else seemed too surprised. From their perspective, a battle between two bottom-of-the-class students is not worth paying attention to, regardless of who wins or loses. Lin was overjoyed. "All right, take a short break, then we'll move on to shuriken throwing practice." The teacher continued to make arrangements. Obito blended into the crowd and completed the training in a standard manner. Since it was all basic content, it was too easy for him. Even if he tried to hide his shortcomings, he couldn't. He got full marks in almost every item. This made many classmates notice Obito's difference, and the Chunin teachers began to ponder it. Could it be that because Obito's rival has always been Kakashi, and he's always been suppressed by Kakashi, now that Kakashi is gone, Obito is taking off? But just a day ago, I couldn't even hit the target with shuriken, and now I'm hitting the bullseye repeatedly. Isn't this rate of improvement a bit too outrageous? The Chunin instructor was baffled, but there were too many strange things happening in the ninja world, so he didn't think much of it and just assumed that Obito had been stimulated by Kakashi and had finally figured it out. Obito had no idea what his teacher was thinking. After all the training was over and the teacher announced that school was over, he met up with Rin. After eating at a roadside stall, the two headed towards the Hatake residence. By the time they arrived at the Hatake family's house, it was already half dark. Lin went up and knocked on the door. Shortly after, Kakashi opened the door, revealing his listless, dead fish-like eyes. In his memory, the Hatake family home was a warm place, but at this moment, behind Kakashi, it was pitch black and dim. "Kakashi, you didn't turn on the light?" Lin asked with some concern. Kakashi lazily uttered an ah, seemingly only now remembering to greet the guest and go inside to turn on the lights. "Come in." As Obito and Rin entered the house, they immediately felt a sense of oppression, because in the center of the room was a portrait of a deceased person. Sakumo Hatake, the White Fang of Konoha, this master swordsman and the great hero whom Obito admired, is right there. A true practitioner of the will of fire committed suicide, leaving Obito with a sense of unease. In his past life, he had entered and exited Konoha many times, and with White Zetsu as a useful intelligence agent, he knew the situation in Konoha better than anyone else. Senior White Fang wasn't simply defeated by rumors and gossip, what truly killed him was the will of fire that he had always upheld. Obito knew all too well the feeling of his beliefs crumbling. If he hadn't fallen into hell and was still that naive, hot-blooded fool, he probably wouldn't be able to accept that someone who constantly talks about the will of fire and someone who constantly says they're doing this for Konoha could simultaneously turn those lofty beliefs into a murderous blade and stab their own people in the back. If he were in his shoes, he would also feel disheartened and couldn't help but ask, why did this happen? How could this be? Furthermore, compared to traditional ninjas, the Hatake family was originally a samurai family. Samurai always value honor and beliefs above all else. Therefore, Senior White Fang committed suicide. In Obito's view, heroes are not immune to death, they can die in battle or make a tragic sacrifice, but they should never die in such a vile political struggle. Therefore, Obito felt that this world was beyond saving, that people's hearts were all ugly, and that only the illusion of the infinite Tsukuyomi could keep heroes on their path. In his previous life, he didn't even want to revive Lin, nor did he want her to face these sordid things. With a sigh, Obito stepped forward slightly, closed his eyes, and solemnly bowed to White Fang. Seeing this, Rin followed suit and bowed to Kakashi's father to express her respect. Kakashi frowned and walked over, blocking the photo of White Fang. His tone was cold, and he spoke as if it were a self-evident truth. In the world of ninjas, those who break the rules and regulations are nothing but trash. You don't need to show such respect to trash. Chapter 10. Lin hesitated, wanting to say something to Kakashi, but her usual upbringing left her unsure how to respond. Obito sneered, "Kakashi, if it were me in the past, I would have told you that those who break the rules are trash, but those who don't cherish their comrades are even worse than trash." Kakashi's pupils constricted sharply, those words struck him like a morning bell. But Obito's tone shifted, "Now I just want to tell you that rules and regulations are made by people. If in a village that emphasizes the will of fire, rules and regulations force a hero who believes in the will of fire to make difficult choices, and in the end he not only fails to be respected but is also condemned by everyone, then perhaps the rules and regulations themselves are wrong. Upon hearing this outrageous remark, both Rin and Kakashi were shocked. Rin even stepped forward to try and cover Obito's mouth. Obito's words were so blunt that it sounded like he was about to curse the leader of Konoha. Even though they were young, they knew that some things shouldn't be said carelessly. Obito gave Rin a reassuring look and continued speaking to Kakashi. Imagine if Senior White Fang abandoned his companions and completed the mission, what do you think would happen? Would the villagers think that Senior White Fang had a very high level of awareness, or would they say that he was just a cold-blooded and ruthless person who killed his companions and was not trustworthy at all? Kakashi froze on the spot, his face pale, swaying precariously. He tried to argue, no, in the ninja world, as long as the mission is completed, there's nothing wrong with it, and no one will say anything. Obito sneered, Kakashi, you're still too naive. Think about it. Would you rather your future comrade be someone who'd do anything to complete a mission, or someone who cherishes their comrades? Kakashi's eyes widened in confusion. He stubbornly retorted, if it's a necessary sacrifice, what's wrong with using any means necessary to complete the mission? I'm willing to partner with someone like that. Obito was furious and couldn't help but shout, Kakashi. Then, he spoke slowly. If you truly thought that way, you wouldn't have hesitated in the first place. And even if you really thought that way, most people's opinions would absolutely, positively differ from yours. Because no one can guarantee that they won't be the next one sacrificed, life is paramount, and out of self-preservation, they will subconsciously resist those who abandon their comrades. Therefore, if Senior White Fang had chosen to abandon his comrades to complete the mission, he would have been drowned in scorn just as easily once the news spread. Obito's words were so irrefutable that they shattered Rin and Kakashi's worldview. Lin trembled, her eyes dim and lifeless. She murmured to herself, how could this be? Does that mean that whatever Senior White Fang does is wrong? Obito said gently to Rin, no, that's not it. The villagers are narrow-minded. They can't accurately assess the cost of completing the task. So, from their perspective, whether the task fails or people die trying to complete it, it's a loss for the village. They're also members of the village, so it's normal for them to feel resentful. After a pause, Obito glanced at Kakashi deliberately and continued, so, to avoid such situations, missions in the ninja world are kept secret. White Fang Senpai always carried out high-level missions with extremely high levels of secrecy. Kakashi, tell me, why would the details of White Fang Senpai's missions leak out and become common knowledge? Could it be that the ANBU under your father's command are all idiots, unable to prevent the spread of leaked information immediately? If every high-level mission is kept this secret, what secrets will Konoha have left in the eyes of other villages? I'm not going to beat around the bush with you anymore. For a high-level mission to be leaked and not stopped, it's only possible that the Konoha higher UPS themselves were behind it. Leaving aside the impact of those words on Kakashi, Rin was the first to feel fear. Obito, is that really true? Obito didn't deny it, but simply patted Rin on the shoulder and said, Rin, don't be afraid. No matter what lies ahead, I will always protect you. Lin felt slightly relieved, but her expression remained somber, clearly unable to easily escape the gloom in her heart. Obito sighed, he regretted saying those things in front of Rin. He was absolutely certain that Lin, 26 years later, would understand everything and be able to tolerate everything. But he forgot that Lin had experienced life and death at that time, and had witnessed everything at the crossroads of the underworld. Lin is a kind person, so even though she has come to understand the true nature of the world, she still loves it. But Rin is still too young, the truth about Konoha is already too cruel for her. However, once the words were spoken, there was no going back. He believed Lin could get through it because he knew she was stronger than anyone else. Obito looked at Kakashi. Kakashi, you're a smart person, so I think you should understand. This mission itself is a trap set for Senior White Fang, so whatever choice he makes, he's wrong. Kakashi was sweating profusely. Compared to Rin, he was a first-hand witness to the whole affair, so he was more deeply affected by the shockwaves. The more he thought about Obito's words, the more chilled he felt. He had already believed 7 or 8 parts, even 9 parts of them. The last part wasn't that he didn't believe them, but that he didn't want to believe them, and he dared not believe them. He asked in a hoarse voice, Obito, tell me, what should I do now? Kakashi was confused. If he admitted that all of this was true, it also meant that he had to face a mountain that he could not climb with his current abilities. Obito looked at Kakashi with a pitiful expression. He swore that he really didn't intentionally smear Konoha, he had simply recounted the whole story. But if you tell the whole story, Konoha becomes incredibly corrupt. This is true of Kakashi now, and also of Sasuke, who was fooled by him in his past life. To be honest, he felt that at least in this matter, Hiruzen Sarutobi might not have much ill intention. Even from a politician's perspective, in terms of both stance and ideology, the Hatake lineage was a true and loyal Hokage faction, someone who could be trusted and relied upon. So even Obito couldn't understand what kind of bizarre move Konoha was making. After a moment's thought, he looked at Kakashi, all right, I won't continue analyzing for you. I'll just tell you the result directly. Hiruzen Sarutobi might not have many bad intentions. Perhaps a little, but not much. As the highest ruler of a village, he inevitably comes into contact with darkness. His indecisive nature is what led him to make many mistakes, but your grudge against him isn't really that great. Just remember one person, Shimura Danzo. He's the culprit who harmed your father. And even in the future, if anything dirty happens and you can't find out who did it, don't even think about it, it will definitely be this person. Chapter 11. Kakashi's trembling body finally calmed down, and he and Rin both breathed a sigh of relief. Compared to the famous third Hokage, Danzo Shimura and his group knew little about him. Kakashi continued hoarsely, who is Shimura Danzo? Lin clenched her little fists and said angrily, that Shimura Danzo must be a big bad guy, I'm going to teach him a lesson. Obito coughed twice, him? He's not much of a figure. He's just a disciple of the second Hokage, Tobirama Senju, and has a life-or-death bond with the third Hokage. He's currently the Hokage's assistant, and he commands the root, the Anbu's strongest branch. Although he could be considered the second in command of Konoha, in the end, he's just a rat in the gutter, not worth mentioning. What? Rin and Kakashi were both shocked. Whether they were disciples of the second Hokage or assistants to the Hokage, their status was extremely high. Kakashi couldn't help but roll his eyes, this is what you call, not much of a big shot. Obito mimicked Kakashi, putting his hands in his pockets and letting out an ah. Anyone can act cool. Danzo was indeed nothing in his eyes. If you had to say what kind of strength he had, he was actually quite good. His wind release ninjutsu was so powerful that he probably couldn't even compare to the Kazekage. But it's only good enough. At this point in time, the Uchiha clan hadn't been wiped out, Uchiha Shisui hadn't died, Orochimaru hadn't defected, and he probably didn't yet possess the Sharingan and Hashirama cells, so he couldn't even unleash Izanagi. Killing them should be quite simple. In particular, he had witnessed Danzo and Sasuke's battle, where Danzo stabbed Susanoo with a kunai and ultimately sealed a bridge. Thinking about it now, he couldn't help but feel a surge of laughter. Seeing Obito's cool, even slightly amused expression, Kakashi felt much more at ease and continued to ask in a hoarse voice, why did he do that? Obito said, Danzo has always coveted the Hokage position. White Fang's reputation is too high, he's the best candidate for the fourth Hokage. If he doesn't ruin White Fang's reputation, White Fang might very well become the fourth Hokage. There's something Obito didn't say. Sakumo becoming the fourth Hokage wasn't in Hiruzen Sarutobi's interest. At that time, Hiruzen probably hoped his disciple Orochimaru would take over, so he didn't stop Danzo from making underhanded moves behind the scenes. But, it's best not to tell Kakashi about this. Sometimes, it's better to be ignorant. The more you know, the heavier the pressure you bear. Kakashi hadn't expected to hear this answer. He clenched his fists and said angrily, "So, he killed my father just to become Hokage?" Obito shook his head. "Actually, he probably didn't expect your father to commit suicide. This guy likes to brainwash himself, mistaking his ambition for the good of Konoha. White Fang was Konoha's top fighting force, how could he bear to kill him? He just wanted to suppress your father's prestige and prevent him from becoming Hokage." Then, Obito sighed, "However, how can a rat in the gutter like Danzo understand the beautiful qualities of those who live in the sunlight? White Fang Senpai died from the collapse of his own beliefs, just like you are in your current state." The two of them immediately understood and felt the same way. Damn it! Kakashi pounded his fists against the wall, a look of hatred on his face. "I must kill Danzo, not only for my father, but also for Konoha. Konoha shouldn't have someone like him." Obito shook his head. "Kakashi, you're blinded by hatred. When Danzo wanted to kill, he shouted the exact same slogan as you. You should calm down." Everyone who heard his detailed account of Konoha would eventually decide to seek revenge against Konoha for various reasons. He was happy to see Sasuke in his past life seek revenge, and even wouldn't mind giving him a push. But Kakashi and Sasuke hold different places in his heart. In addition, he wants to be a good person in this life and doesn't want his best friend Kakashi to become like Sasuke. So he comforted him, saying, "Don't worry, Danzo will die sooner or later. You don't need to avenge him. Compared to you, the Uchiha are the ones who most deserve revenge." Kakashi paused for a moment, seemingly having misunderstood something. "Obito, you also have a grudge against Danzo? If it's you, I can let you take revenge." Rin looked at Obito and couldn't help but ask, "Obito, is what you experienced related to Danzo?" Rin grew angrier the more she thought about it, especially remembering the despair and oppression she had felt from Obito. She couldn't help but shout angrily, "Danzo, what exactly did you do to Obito?" Seeing that Rin had misunderstood, Obito scratched his head somewhat embarrassedly. "Rin, you've misunderstood. Although many people have grudges against Danzo, I'm not among them. The Uchiha's grudges belong to the Uchiha, I don't have much personal animosity with him." Kakashi and Rin were both taken aback. They thought that Obito had laid so much groundwork just to introduce Danzo, but now it seemed that wasn't the case. Kakashi's expression turned serious. "Obito, let's put aside my father's matter and Danzo's matter for now. But you don't seem like the Obito I know. How do you know so much? You even know that my father is the captain commander of the Anbu. Where did you get this information from? Furthermore, where did you get such strong logical thinking skills, you idiot? Who instigated you, and what was their purpose?" Obito took a deep breath, his eyes becoming profound. He calmly looked at Kakashi and Rin and spoke slowly. "Because this matter is confidential, and to prove I'm not lying, I will take you somewhere next." After saying that, he opened and closed his eyes, having already activated his Mangekyou Sharingan. Before him, a passage connecting to the divine might space gradually took shape. He entered the passage first and waved to the two people still outside. "Come in. This is a space-time ninjutsu I created using my eyes. The world inside is absolutely safe, but maintaining this passage puts a tremendous strain on my body." After saying this, 2 streams of bloody tears flowed from his eyes. Rin was initially shocked that Obito possessed such an incredible ability, but after hearing what Obito said, a look of heartache appeared on her face. and she immediately pulled Kakashi inside. Obito immediately closed the passage and exited the Sharingan state. "Obito, are you alright?" Lin was very worried. She took out a white handkerchief and wiped away Obito's blood and tears. Obito felt a warmth in his heart and smiled, "It's alright, this is the price for using these eyes. It's just a little blood, casting a summoning jutsu also requires blood." Rin was a little angry, "Nonsense. You were trembling all over just now, Obito. Promise me you won't use that kind of power as much as possible in the future, okay?" Obito nodded. He wouldn't have gone to such lengths to open a spatial portal if it weren't to show Rin and Kakashi the evidence. He only acquired the ability to open doors directly after obtaining the dual Kamui, which consumes far more chakra than directly sucking people into the Kamui dimension. When fighting Kagaya Otsutsuki, he only had enough chakra to open doors because Sakura acted as his power bank. However, at that time he was using Kagaya's dimension, and his own condition was not very good, which was different from when he was using his own Kamui dimension. Nevertheless, he still felt a slight decrease in his vision. After Rin wiped away his blood and tears, Kakashi couldn't wait to ask, "Obito, were your eyes Sharingan? But they're different from what I've seen before. How many things are you hiding from us?" Obito took Rin's hand and gripped it tightly. What he was about to say was something he didn't want to face, even though he needed Rin's encouragement. He took a deep breath and said slowly, "Rin, Kakashi, I've returned from 26 years in the future. I don't want to hide it from you, but this is my biggest secret, and I hope you won't tell anyone about it for now." Chapter 12. What? Although they knew Obito might reveal a very, very big secret, his words still shocked them. "Obito, what does it mean that you've returned after 26 years? Lin asked, somewhat incredulously. Obito sat down cross-legged. "Sit down first, I need to explain slowly." Seeing this, the two exchanged a glance and hesitantly sat down next to Obito. Obito's eyes were deep as he slowly said, "You can also understand it as me having a dream about everything that will happen to me from now until 26 years from now. If the idea of traveling through time back to the past seems a bit unbelievable, then a prophecy is much easier to understand." Rin's mouth dropped open. "No, Obito, I understand. You mean, you're the Obito from the future who came back to the present?" Rin rested her chin on her hand, pondering for a moment, and said, "You give me the impression that you've suddenly matured and grown up. Although I'm certain you're still the same Obito, you've definitely changed a lot. If you came from the future, then, everything makes sense." Rin suddenly understood where the emotions of life and death separation and long-awaited reunion that she felt from Obito's embrace came from. So, something happened to her in the future? For a moment, she was in complete turmoil. Compared to Rin, Kakashi could not accept such a thing. Traveling back to the past from the future? That's unbelievable. "Obito, you haven't fallen under some kind of genjutsu, have you?" Obito snorted, "Kakashi, you felt my chakra just now, didn't you? And this space, and my eyes too. If you could have all these things just by being caught in a genjutsu, I think no one would need to train." Kakashi was speechless for a moment. He had indeed felt a huge, cold chakra emanating from Obito. Obito suddenly seemed like a different person. He had only ever felt that kind of oppressive aura from his father. Thinking of this, Kakashi narrowed his eyes. Compared to Obito's rebirth, he suddenly had a more pressing question. "Obito, how strong are you now? How do you compare to my father?" Obito looked thoughtful. "I haven't fought against Senior White Fang. After all, I'm only 5 years old." Expecting a 5-year-old to have much of an impression of a deceased elder is a bit of an overestimation. Obito paused for a moment, then revealed a confident expression. "But I think that if I'm willing to pay a price, White Fang shouldn't be a match for me. Judging from the information available, Senior White Fang should be a master swordsman with extremely sharp close combat skills. Even by the highest estimate, it shouldn't have surpassed the level of an ordinary film, otherwise, World War II would have ended much sooner. He hasn't surpassed the level of an ordinary cage, at most, he's at the level of the third Reikage. That would indeed be terrifying, but in close combat, unless you reach the level of space distortion like Guy, you'd be countered by his abilities. Kakashi snorted. He didn't believe Obito's words. As his son, he felt his father's strength most deeply. Even though he was called a genius, he still felt a huge, insurmountable gap in his daily sparring with his father. If his father got serious, he wouldn't be able to withstand a single move, no, he would die. Therefore, his expression became serious. Obito, you used to think you were stronger than me, but you never beat me even once. I don't really believe what you say. You idiot, you're always so arrogant, so. Kakashi stood up, his eyes sharp, and assumed an offensive stance, staring intently at Obito. Let's fight. Let me see your strength. If you can beat me, I'll listen to your story about traveling from the future to the present. Sensing Kakashi's resolve, Obito stood up as well, and couldn't help but sigh, as expected, before saying things that others find hard to accept, you still have to fight first. He recalled the scene before his rebirth when Naruto persuaded him. He was willing to listen to Naruto because, ultimately, Naruto had the right to talk to him. Kakashi, slightly annoyed by Obito's nonchalant attitude, said, Obito, such contempt will lead to great consequences. Obito nonchalantly shrugged, Kakashi, you don't understand how vast the gap is between us, just like I didn't understand how vast the gap was between us when we were kids. He activated his 3-tomo jade pendant. If those eyes from before were unfamiliar to you, then these eyes, even if you haven't seen them before, you've at least heard of them, right? Kakashi was startled, his deadpan eyes finally showing a change. 3-tomo. How is that possible? His father had explained the Uchiha clan to him, explaining that every Uchiha who awakened their Sharingan gained immense power, increasing from 1 tomo to 3 tomo. The 3-tomo Sharingan is the pinnacle of the Sharingan. He asked his father curiously how powerful the 3-tomo Sharingan was, and his father, unusually, showed a hint of caution. He still remembered what his father had said to him that day. The Uchiha with the 3-tomo have greatly enhanced dynamic vision, capable of detecting the trajectory of every enemy attack. Even our Hatake clan's swordsmanship, no matter how elusive, will be seen through by those eyes. Their exceptional dynamic vision allows them to easily become masters of taijutsu and ninja tool throwing. Combined with the Uchiha clan's formidable fire-style ninjutsu and the terrifying genjutsu inherent in their eyes, they are powerful in every aspect, without any blind spots. There's a famous saying in the ninja world, if a typical jonin faces a 3-tomo opponent one-on-one, they should run away. Even I wouldn't dare look directly into those eyes during a fight. Recalling his father's words, Kakashi's expression no longer held any contempt. Obito, you may be very, very strong, however. Kakashi continued to recall. Then he continued, asking White Fang, so, father, can you win? White Fang simply smiled slightly, a powerful confidence radiating from his face, and squatted down to pat his head. We will win. Kakashi paused for a moment, then continued to ask. But, can't the Sharingan see through everything? White Fang continued with a smile, as long as you're fast enough that even if you see through the attack's trajectory, your body won't be able to react in time, you'll naturally win. Kakashi snapped out of his daze, the fleeting fear on his face vanishing. Obito quietly observed Kakashi's change and asked, what? Kakashi, have you found a way to deal with me? Kakashi said, even if you have these eyes, as long as you're fast enough, you can end the battle. Let's decide the outcome with speed. In an instant, Kakashi moved, lightning crackling around him, his speed surpassing anything he had ever done before. He transformed into a blur, attacking Obito. Chapter 13. Lin watched helplessly as the two started fighting again. This is the umpteenth time they've fought since they met. She tried to persuade him, but to no avail, so in the end she simply gave up. If there's anything different about this time, it's that this challenge was initiated by Kakashi. Rin was always on edge whenever the two fought, while Kakashi wasn't too worried, he was mainly concerned about Obito. The same applies now. Even though we know that Obito is different now, with the incredible spatial abilities he's shown before, and considering that he came from the future and might have a wealth of combat experience, he's probably stronger than Kakashi. But seeing Kakashi flash with electricity and rush towards Obito at a speed almost imperceptible to the naked eye, Rin couldn't help but shout out. Obito! The two words had barely left his lips when Kakashi's fist was already in front of Obito. However, Obito remained completely oblivious, standing still in place. Could it be a stand-in? Lin clenched her fists nervously. Having seen Obito use this technique before, Rin felt more confident. However, Kakashi, who was in the midst of the battle, was the one best able to analyze the situation. There were no hand seals or jutsu marks. Obito stood frozen in place. Was it because he couldn't react? As expected, there's nothing to fear from those eyes. My newly developed lightning release ninjutsu, though still immature, can greatly enhance my speed. Even 3 Tomo Jades couldn't react in time. Now, my speed is probably not much slower than my father's. Obito, I won. Kakashi delivered a powerful punch to Obito's face. However, this friendship-breaking punch didn't feel like it hit anything substantial, it was as if there was nothing in front of it. In the instant Kakashi was horrified, he uncontrollably passed through Obito's body. Yes, that's exactly it. It passed right through Obito, as if Obito were just a ghost, without any physical form. How is that possible? Kakashi was horrified, this bizarre ability was beyond his comprehension. In the instant the two passed each other, Obito casually turned away. Then, a heavy elbow strike landed on Kakashi's back. Bang! Kakashi fell to the ground. Obito withdrew his hand and calmly asked, Kakashi, shall we continue? Kakashi lay on the ground, speechless for a long time. After a while, he couldn't help but ask, what kind of ability was that just now? Obito slowly said, it's an ability generated by my Mangekyou Sharingan that allows me to become intangible for a period of time. Of course, I wasn't sure if I could use this ability in this space. I just did a small experiment, and it actually works. Kakashi was taken aback, then gave a wry smile, you weren't even serious just now, you were just doing an experiment. Obito nodded, yes, it's just an experiment. The essence of my intangibility is actually hiding my body in another dimension, just like the space-time portal I used at the beginning. It's a type of space-time ninjutsu. However, in my previous life, when I was in this divine might space, I was unable to continue using the ability to become ethereal. But after gaining my eyes, I wondered, since I can transfer my body from the real world to this space, could I transfer my body from this space to the real world? Surprisingly, I succeeded. Kakashi frowned, I didn't understand a lot of that, and aren't Sharingan supposed to be a pair? Are you going to lose one eye in the future? Obito nodded, squatted down, looked at Kakashi, and said calmly. In my past life, I did indeed only have one eye for a very long time, because the other eye is in you. What? Not only was Kakashi shocked, but Rin also ran over. She was surprised that Obito could defeat Kakashi so easily, but she was more concerned about what would happen in the future. Obito, why is one of your eyes on Kakashi in the future? Obito sat down, pulling Rin down with him, and looked at Kakashi. Now, can you tell me the whole story? Kakashi rolled over, barely managing to sit up, clutching his back and saying helplessly, you really went all out. Do I even have the right to disobey now? Go on. Obito nodded. There's a lot to say, and I probably can't say it all at once. I'll try to focus on the key points. Obito's expression turned serious. Rin, Kakashi. In the future, we formed a team. During one mission, I was crushed by a giant boulder. I thought I wouldn't survive, so I gave you one of my eyes, Kakashi, as a gift for your promotion to Jonin. Rin astutely picked up on the key information. Obito, so you're saying you didn't die, and when did Kakashi become a Jonin in the future? Obito slowly said, 7 years later. Rin was both worried and excited. 7 years later, Kakashi will only be 12 years old, right? Becoming a Jonin at 12 is amazing. But, Obito, what happened to you later? And then, a hint of sadness appeared in Obito's eyes. Later, someone saved me. At that time, half of my body was crushed. If I hadn't already possessed some ability to become ethereal, I might have died long ago. Lin breathed a sigh of relief. So, what about me? She asked the question cautiously. Obito looked at Rin, remaining silent for a moment. After a while, he said, Lin, you were fine at the time, but something happened not long after. Rin was already mentally prepared, muttering to herself, as expected, something's happened to me, Obito, am I dead? Obito desperately wanted to avoid the question. Even now, he still didn't want to recall that scene. But seeing the questioning look in Lin's eyes, he could only slowly say, I'm sorry, Lin, I didn't protect you well. The person who saved me didn't mean any harm. To achieve his plan, he deliberately led me astray. At that time, the Third Shinobi World War broke out. He controlled Kirigakure and planted the three tails inside you. To avoid bringing disaster to the village, you deliberately died at Kakashi's hands, and I, just happened to witness that scene. As he finished speaking, Obito's voice became hoarse. That was the beginning of hell. The story Obito told was so cruel that Rin and Kakashi fell silent for a moment, unable to imagine what that scene must have been like. So that's how it is. Rin broke the silence, but Obito, what is the three tails? Obito was somewhat speechless, having forgotten that Rin and Kakashi were still young and naturally unable to obtain information about the tailed beasts. He explained, the three tails can be simply understood as a very powerful summoning beast, a tool of war for the major ninja villages, capable of destroying an entire village with a single blow. Lin thought for a moment, then smiled gently, I see. So, I sacrificed myself to protect the village in the future. Chapter 14. Obito was a little worried. Rin, Rin shook her head. Obito, you don't need to blame yourself. The teacher said on the first day of class that being a ninja is a high-risk profession, you have to be prepared to die at any moment. Although hearing the news that I would die in the future has left me deeply unsettled, if it's to protect the village, thinking about it carefully, it's not so bad. Besides, Rin smiled, since Obito, you came from the future, everything in the future has changed, hasn't it? Obito breathed a sigh of relief, then looked at Rin very seriously. Rin, I will never let you die again. I said I would work hard to improve myself and protect you. Rin nodded slightly, her face flushing as she looked at Obito's earnest gaze. However, as if she had thought of something, a hint of sadness and heartache appeared in Lin's eyes. Obito, it must have been very painful to watch me die, right? I hope you won't blame Kakashi. Obito gave a bitter laugh and lowered his head. I'm sorry, Rin, back then. I couldn't control the hatred in my heart. He turned to look at Kakashi. At this moment, Kakashi's eyes were filled with confusion, and he couldn't help but ask, Obito, in the future, did I really kill Rin with my own hands? Obito snorted coldly, then roared, Kakashi, you promised me you'd protect Rin, but you used the lightning release ninjutsu you just used to hit me, the technique you later called lightning blade, to pierce Rin's chest with your own hands. For a long time, I couldn't help but blame you for not protecting Lin, for standing by and watching Lin die. An immense resentment emanated from Obito, even distorting his facial features. Rin stood to the side, her heart heavy. It turned out that most of the despair and repression in Obito's heart were because of her. She wanted to step forward and say a few words to stop him, but she understood Obito. He was just taking this opportunity to vent his emotions. It wasn't good to keep these emotions bottled up, so it was better to let them out. In the end, she just watched quietly from the sidelines, without saying a word. Kakashi was shaken. Because he had never experienced it, he couldn't truly understand what it felt like to kill Rin with his own hands, but he could sense the sorrow and despair that Obito was feeling. Such emotions couldn't be faked. In addition, lightning blade. Kakashi raised his hand. The lightning ninjutsu he had just used was only a prototype. In his future vision, he would indeed gather lightning chakra in his hand to unleash its maximum destructive power. This seems to increase the possibility that Obito came from the future. Kakashi said, "I'm sorry, Obito, I won't let the same thing happen again." Obito took a deep breath and continued to roar, "Kakashi, you're all talk. Do you know why I'll hate you so much in the future? It's not just because you killed Rin with your own hands. After all, I know everything. Rin willingly ran into your hands and died. I resent you because you've become completely despondent, spending your days and nights in a daze, living like a walking corpse. Lin clearly believed in you, regarding you as the sun in the sky, which is why she made that decision. But your subsequent is a difficult word to translate directly, but it implies a state of being listless, dispirited, and lacking motivation. State makes you unworthy of being stained with Lin's blood." Kakashi's pupils contracted. He recalled his father's suicide some time ago, after which he had been in a dazed and confused state, exactly as Obito had described. Obito sneered, "Kakashi, you've felt it yourself, haven't you? Every time you suffer a setback, you always look so lifeless. You've been like this since you were a child. How can someone like you deserve the title of genius? How can you be the sun in Rin's heart?" Kakashi's face gradually paled, and sweat began to bead on his forehead. He then lowered his head and said with a self-deprecating laugh, "Obito, you're right. I might just be a piece of trash." After venting his anger, Obito gradually calmed down and couldn't help but scoff. "Kakashi, didn't you say before that completing missions is the most important thing in the ninja world? In the Rin incident, you prevented a potential disaster and fulfilled your duty as a ninja. You should be happy, so why are you so downcast?" Kakashi was taken aback, then began to ponder. He didn't know what his future self would think, but if the price of completing the mission was to kill Rin with his own hands, then he couldn't help but shudder, and said with difficulty, "No, I can't accept that happening." Obito sarcastically remarked, "This is the hypocritical side of you all. Nagato is right, how can someone who hasn't experienced hardship understand the pain? You can always easily spout grand theories, but it's all just easy talk from someone who doesn't understand the suffering. Is that so?" Kakashi murmured to himself, "Father, I was wrong after all. You were the one who always upheld your beliefs." Kakashi turned to Obito and said earnestly, "Obito, thank you." He suddenly understood that Obito's previous actions were partly an expression of his own emotions, but more importantly, he wanted to use this opportunity to enlighten him and make him realize that his thinking was wrong. Rin smiled again. Obito, the boy who needed her care, had now become someone she could rely on. "But?" Rin asked curiously, "Obito, who is Nagato?" Obito coughed. Nagato was one of the initial members of a peace-loving organization. He was born in a small country where the war between the 5 great nations broke out on their territory. The war destroyed his home, and compared to the relatively peaceful Konoha, he had a deeper understanding of suffering. "Is that so?" Lin said sympathetically. Nagato was a pitiful person too. Obito nodded. There are many pitiful people like this. In the future, I will travel to many places and meet many such people. At that time, I came to a profound understanding of one fact: the 5 great powers were all arrogant and aloof, possessing an arrogance they themselves were unaware of. They always think they are the center of the world, and that their actions represent justice. Yet, they often shout slogans of justice while bringing suffering to others. This isn't just true of people like Danzo, even good people from the 5 great nations are the same. Lin nodded, but her brows furrowed more and more. She didn't care about the 5 great nations Obito mentioned, she was only worried about Obito. She could sense that something was wrong with Obito's thoughts. It's not that it's wrong, but rather that it's out of step with the overall mindset of Konoha. Obito, you said I would die in the future, and you witnessed it all. So, what about you? What happened to you afterwards? Obito lowered his head in shame. What was destined to happen would happen eventually, he couldn't escape it. He said slowly, Lin, in the future, I've done so many wrong things, even if I were to be torn to pieces, I wouldn't deserve to die. I don't even dare to face you. But I will tell you everything little by little. Chapter 15. Having already prepared herself mentally, Rin simply comforted him, saying, Obito, you said you did many wrong things, and my death must have affected you a lot, right? But none of that has happened yet. Let's work together, and we can definitely change the future. Kakashi, who was standing to the side, nodded. After Obito's encouragement, he had also cheered up. Obito, no matter how many mistakes you make in the future, you don't need to dwell on them, because you already know you were wrong, right? That way, it's not too late. Obito gave a wry smile. That's why Kakashi said, before experiencing suffering, don't easily express your opinions, because that's wrong. My future self, having witnessed Rin's death, was manipulated by the person who saved me and began to implement a plan called Infinite Tsukuyomi. Infinite Tsukuyomi? Rin and Kakashi asked in surprise. Obito activated his 3-tomo Sharingan, pointing to his eyes and saying, this is the bloodline limit of our Uchiha clan, the Sharingan. Kakashi should know a little about it. The Sharingan possesses extremely powerful genjutsu abilities. Because it has been lost for a long time, unless one is a high-ranking member of the Uchiha clan, most people believe that the limit of the Sharingan is 3-tomo. Kakashi was taken aback, and subconsciously said, isn't that right? But suddenly, Kakashi remembered Obito's eyes when he entered this space, eyes that were different in shape from the 3-tomo shape. Could it be? Obito nodded. My initial eyes were a more advanced form than the 3-tomo Sharingan, known as the Mangekyou Sharingan. Each pair of Mangekyou Sharingan possesses its own unique dojutsu, eye technique. For example, the dojutsu